Welcome to News You Need Now, a special edition of the Group Practice Accelerator podcast brought to you by Polaris Healthcare Partners, where we leverage decades of healthcare and business experience to drive growth in successful group practices just like yours. In this special edition series, we address breaking news stories and provide up-to-date answers and resources aimed at protecting your business. I'm your host, Jamie Falash, and Polaris News You Need Now is on the air. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. And I want to start by saying that we will still put out our regular Thursday podcast as always, but today we're bringing you a special release. We understand that a lot of people are really anxious about the recent market turbulence, rightfully so. So we want to help sort through some of that noise together. Now, we realize the news is all doom and gloom right now, and we're being inundated with it from every angle. So we want to first be cautious with what we consume. Well, I'm certainly not minimizing what's happening in the markets at all. We also have to remind ourselves that there's an entertainment element to our news channels, and to be a little cliche about it, cooler heads do in fact prevail, so no one should be panicking. Second, our aim is to keep you in the driver's seat when it comes to making sound financial decisions for your business, and even how to take advantage of uncertain times if that's possible. So today's episode will be short and sweet and designed to cover what you need to push through current events. And here with me to talk through what the markets mean for you is our founder and CEO, Diwakar Sinha. Diwakar, thanks for joining me today.
Jamie, thanks for having me.
Well, why don't we start off with what we're seeing in the news? I know we're seeing a lot of negative data points, and I say negative at least right now, including tariffs. I know in March 2025, the federal government laid off 216,000 people, according to CBS News. So huge cutbacks this year. And as of April 1st, an additional 60,000 federal employees were laid off. And we know that when layoffs happen, regardless of anyone's opinion, there will therefore be less consumer and corporate spending. When that comes down, some corporations are also going to have cutbacks. And, we know all that translates to less consumer spending, and we want our clients to get ahead of that. And we need to understand how that might impact their business and how to get ahead of it instead of just reacting all the time. We talk a lot about financial forecasting and strategic planning on this podcast, so we want to always be prepared for changes as they come. Diwakar, can you talk about the news and the down market and what that means in reality for most people and their businesses? I know people are really stressed out about what could happen in the next 90, 120 days. What are people supposed to be doing right now?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of went through some data points that are coming out that are recent, right? And then we looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics report that came out for non-farm labor that kind of contradicted that data coming out of it and said, hey, unemployment's still pretty good. And I think those are lagging indicators. So I think when, Q2 report comes out, that's going to probably look at, more fresh data, and that might give us a more lagging indicator of what's been going on recently in the market. And that might give us a more fresh, or some of the pain that a lot of people are reacting to today. And that I think is completely understandable to some of the reactions that are happening in the space. That said, I think, what we want people to get out of this podcast is to be thinking ahead, over the short term, right? And I think, with the tariffs and some of the short term macro changes happening in the space is that, these are 3 to 4 month changes that are happening with the tariffs, with the changes in the market. And that, coming out of this is probably 100, maybe 150-day position that this is around end of summer to maybe Q3 that the market will turn around, that we are going to come out of this and it's going to smooth things out, and that there is going to be some level of small rise in unemployment, rise in some level of inflation that we're going to feel coming out of this, and that there's going to be a reaction, and from my opinion, some level of reaction from the Federal Reserve. Probably, my gut tells me probably 25 basis points, maybe another 50 basis point reduction going into Q3, Q4. That's going to try to soften some of the economic pressure coming out of it. And that should provide some level of softening going into Q3, Q4. But I do think people need to be ahead of it and start to plan for it and thinking about their businesses, going to market and running their businesses today. It's somewhat similar to when I look at not to look at going back to COVID, but I think there's a lot of uncertainty coming out of COVID, and people came out strong as for the people that planned for it,
Exactly.
coming out of it. So I think overall consumer spending is still pretty good. I think if businesses that are planning ahead of it, 90 days out, 120 days out, 6 months out in their businesses are doing really well. Our goal with our clients that we're working is to do financial forecasting, think ahead in their marketing, think ahead in their processes. And this is no different than even in 2024 in our podcast. We were telling our clients and our listeners to be thinking over the horizon 6 to 9 months out in their business planning. So even today, don't react to what's happening today. Don't react to the news at the 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock news. Of course, look at the data you're receiving in your business, digest it, make sure you're understanding it. But look at the business 90 days out, 6 months out, 9 months out within your business.
Yeah, that's fair. And we know historically things do turn around, but that doesn't mean that people aren't concerned now. So thank you for that. And in response to what you mentioned before about talking about deals in 2025, you and I put out some recent podcasts on why 2025 is the year to sell. And we have a lot of people thinking about going to market. This is going to sound silly. Is it still a good time to go to market with all that's happening? Like, who's still spending?
Yeah, I mean, I think I alluded to potential pricing reductions in Q3, Q4. So again, not that I have a crystal ball, but I think I kind of talked about where we would probably see some level of a higher inflation. We're going to see potential some level of a raise in unemployment for just a short term, and then potentially some level of a pricing reduction going to Q3, Q4. And we've kind of talked about how a go-to-market process takes about 90 days to 120 days to be there. So if you're trying to be ready for market in Q3, Q4, you kind of have to be going to market, in the next 60, 90 days. So 23 and 24, there was, from our previous podcast, a lot of deals that did not happen.
Mhm.
So I still feel there's a lot of dry powder available from the last 24 months that is available to be deployed in 25 and 26. We're still getting a lot of calls to deploy capital in 25 and 26. That hasn't changed in the last 2 weeks, in the last 30 days. People are still looking to deploy capital. So if you have a good business, you're running it well, you know, you still should look at going to market in 25, 26. And if anything, position your business to think about, hey, I want to be the business going into Q3 that's transacting and Q4 because the market conditions will be good because the cost of capital will be more attractive for the right partner because they can leverage better and I'm positioned in the market to be there because I'm the right business. I'm looking for the right partner. And again, that goes into the right theme we've talked about in our previous podcast.
Well, and that leads me to my next question is what does access to capital look like now?
Capital's been good coming out of 2024, right? So again, cost of capital in 2024 was fairly high. I think credit standards were a little bit conservative in 2024. As cost of capital has gone up, so far has gone down, I believe about 100 basis points. I talked about that in our previous podcast. 5-year treasuries over the last 60 days are down roughly about 50 basis points. Over the last maybe week, they've gone up about maybe 15 basis points, 20 basis points. That's just small market corrections in the space. But overall, they're still down compared to the last 60 days. So I think it's overall favorable to go in and get debt capital. And when I say debt capital, senior debt, for these are our emerging group practices that are 5 to 25 locations that are looking for a 5 to $25 million check size. So, access to capital is still, available in the market. And in credit standards are back to where they were pre 2024. So I think
Okay.
there's a lot of capital available. When you start to go into sponsor finance for private equity, the leverage capital are back to where they were pre 2024. So again, a lot of dry powder available going into Q3, Q4. You want to get your business to go to market if you have a good business to go to market.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And one final question for you here. What advice do you have for those who are growing, meaning they're acquiring and building? Because we do work with a lot of clients in that respect as well. And how do they mitigate risk right now?
Yeah, I mean, I said that earlier in the podcast is to do financial forecasting. So give us a call. We can help you financial forecasting with your business. Our theme with our clients always is to be thinking 90 days to 9 months out, is to not react, not be a firefighter. I think running your business as a firefighter is a very difficult way to run your business.
Sure.
Um, and I can understand that, there's always fires to be put out when you're running a business. That said, that should probably be 10 to 20% of your day. 80% of your day should be thinking ahead, planning ahead, and enjoying the business you're running. So, I understand today with all the changes, Jamie, as you talked about, yeah, there's a level of uncertainty happening, and I understand the news coming at us provides a level of uncertainty, and that maybe that takes away 10 to 20% of our day. With putting out fires with our team members and addressing the uncertainty in the market today. But 80% of our should be, how are we going to get ahead of our marketing issues and attracting the right patient, retaining the patients, getting ahead of patient financing concerns, and making sure that we're not losing patients in the back door, and that we are getting ahead and making sure our schedules are full, and that we're retaining our doctors, and that we're making sure that we have the highest patient satisfaction ratio, and that our schedules are full. So I think, again, a lot of this is planning and looking at scheduled production, and that we are thinking ahead of our business. And again, 90 days to 9 months out.
Well, and that is why we talk so much about optimization from every angle of the business. Because if you have your operations optimized, if you have your clinical practice optimized, you are by default prepared for turbulence. And by that, I mean those waves that come, because they do come. It's predictable. These things do happen. And then we rebound. But you're more prepared for that when you've got a good plan in place, like you said, working 6, 9, even 12 months out or further with a good forecast, right people in place, and running smoothly. Like you said, putting out fires should be very little of your time. We know they come, but they're more easily put out when you're well prepared for it. Well, Diwakar, thanks for your time today. We appreciate that you can help us talk through and hopefully alleviate some of the anxiety around the news, and as well as some things to think about with that turbulence going on out there. And our listeners, if you are concerned, we are here to help. So let's definitely schedule some time to talk. We can discuss it. So please reach out and send us an email to info@polarishealthcarepartners.com. Or you can reach us by visiting our website at polarishealthcarepartners.com. Thanks so much for joining us for this special episode of Polaris News You Need Now. We'll see you on Thursday for another episode of the Group Practice Accelerator Podcast.